Good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Melco's application team. Good morning, Gina. Thank you for joining us today. And Rachel, hey. So let me know what questions you have. Again, my name is Samantha with application team. Sorry, I got distracted. This is our DesignShop Talk, where we try to answer whatever questions you might have. I do have some that were sent in ahead of time, so we'll start with those. If you have questions while we're live on both YouTube and Facebook, so type them in on the comments. If you see me off looking to the side, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at the chats to see what questions come in. Don't send them privately. I don't see those until after the live. Tara, thanks for joining today. All right, so let's see what we have to start with. All right, so we've got some question on some text. Okay, so let's go look at those. How do we do an arch? And good morning, Scott. All right, so we're gonna go to our design. I'm gonna go to create some lettering, and I'm just gonna write my name. All right, so if you go into the properties, over here you'll see that there's this line type thingy. Like my really technical term there, thingy. So right here we have arc. All right, cool. We've got our eyebrows, as someone called it last week, I think, which I like. Morning, Ted. All right, so when you have it that way, now what? So if you want it to go the opposite way, right here you have, you can change the angle. So I can tell it to be 180, and that flips it upside down. Now, what's another way we could do that same thing? So I do it in the properties, or down here, you've got these rotation buttons. So you see here, there's rotation, or you have these mirror buttons. So you can click the rotation twice, and that'll rotate it 90-90. You can mirror it and then mirror it again. So if you do click each one of those horizontal mirror and vertical mirror buttons, if you click them each once, it does the same thing. All right, now what if you don't want your text to read upside down? You want it to read normal, but you want the smile arc instead of the backwards. Well, that's when you come again into the properties. So how did I get to the properties? Well, you can right click, go to properties. You can double click on the element. It all takes you to the same place. Okay, so once you're into the object properties, right here, you've got clockwise and counterclockwise. So if I change it to counterclockwise, it's going to flip it. So now it's reading not upside down. All right. So the other part of that question was, all right, well, if I have borders on a letter, so let me go put borders. So if I tell it to enable borders, all right, so now I've got, if I go look at the color changes, I got a gazillion of them. So let me just, how do I make the color on a two-letter stitch one color at a time instead of doing both letters? All right, so I get it. So what the question is, you'll notice I got a gazillion color changes here. It's only 2 colors, but what it's doing is it's sewing a letter and then it's sewing the outline. Sewing a letter, sewing the outline, and it just repeats that until the end. That is actually the preferred way to do it. You always want to finish as you go so you don't end up with registration issues. Because if you sew something out completely, right? So if I sew that full name and then I come back and do all the borders, the likelihood that by the end, that last one is going to line up starts decreasing. Okay. But let's say it's a short thing. It's, 2 or 3 letters. You're confident that you've got it hooped well. You've got good stabilizer, all the good stuff, right? So from there, you can go to properties, go into the borders, and then say stitch borders last. All right. So like I said, I don't personally recommend doing it this way. I find you get better results outlining as you go, but if that's what you want to do, you can make it automatically change it so that it does the name and then all the borders. Okay, so just keep in mind you're always going to have best results if you outline and finish things as you're going through a project rather than sewing it all out and then going back and doing all the outline work. Okay. All right, what else do we have? I had the letter M digitized for puff, 2 colors. I went into DesignShop to redo the colors. So basically the outlines are all one color and then the puff is another color. You send it to OS, the color sequence, and the save, add the applique and save. I don't know why you would save it rather than just apply OK. The letter is white, even though the sewing list states the needles 1 and 11. So the things I would look at is your thread tree in the OS side colored? Okay, so I would start there. And what does that mean? Well, let me find a picture of the thread tree. So notice here it's all gray. Here it's colored. You want to make sure if this isn't colored, then it's gonna, whatever colors are here, it's gonna do it. Another one is if you're not using the OFM, then the colors from the file are going to come across weird. So that if you're auto selecting colors upon it loading, that can be a problem there. But as long as this is colored, like if I had this color sequence with this thread tree, whatever design I had would come up as green and black. Okay, is what it would come up with. Right now, if I hit apply, okay, and if I went to tools, settings, and under there's another settings box where you can tell it whether to use colors from design, or you uncheck that box, then it will use whatever colors are on your thread tree. I prefer that because that way I can see on the screen what it's going to look like when it sews out. So I would just make sure your thread tree is colored and as the starting point. If that's not it, if you can shoot us an email with the file that you're working with and we can take a look at it. Yeah, we can go from that. All right, so we have a question typed in. Oh, that's right, it's Father's Day this weekend. All right, so morning, I want to split the word dad into 2 parts, having a top and bottom portion. Okay, so let's do it. All right, I assume this is going to be big. So dad, let's use a bolder font. Let's use like a block 2 because it's big and blocky. And make it bigger, like 8. Okay, of course I just gave it a gazillion stitches. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to change it to a flat fill because it's huge. Yeah. All right, so we got a few ways we can deal with this. So I'm going to go ahead and convert to wireframe. And then what you can do, let me just tell you up front, there's a bunch of ways we can do this. This is just one option you have. All right, so if I select right here, this is my insert splice. I assume you want a straight line. Actually, I'm going to do it, like I said, there's a gazillion ways we can do it. I'm going to do it with the vector. All right, so I can, oops, let's try that again. So I'm going to draw a vector box. And why am I doing this? Just so I have a straight line that it's going to cut across, right? So from here, if I copy and paste all this stuff, and I'm going to give it another color, you'll see why I do that in a minute. So I'm going to take what you want to subtract from, and then what you're subtracting away from it. All right, and I'm just going to click the subtract button, right click on that first to make sure your overlap is not set to 0. And now I've got a bottom. So I'm going to do that exact same thing with the other letters. So select the letter, click on this, subtract, select the letter, click on that, subtract. So now I've got the bottoms. So now I just got to do the tops. So I can do the same thing. I can copy this, paste it, and drag it down. I assume you want a little overlap. So let's plan some overlap on it. And then you remember I copied and pasted all that stuff. So now we're just going to do the same thing again. Select this, select the bottom, subtract. So this is one way to do it. So that's where you can split it into 2 things. You can also, let's do another thing right here. So rather than doing subtract, I can do a insert splice line. So if I do a straight one, I can, stop it. I have to select the element first. So I'm going to click the element that I want to add a splice line to, insert splice line, left click and drag, and let's turn that mess off since I keep on selecting it by accident. All right, so left click and drag, and why isn't it doing it? Just to be annoying, that's why. Okay, so I'm going to drag a splice line across. Now from here, it's got a splice line. I can right click, operations, break object. So now I've got a bottom and a top. So there's a bunch of ways we can do it. It's really, what are you trying to create, right? So if what you're trying to do is like do that split monogram where you've got kind of a above, below, and you put something in the middle, like a name. This might be a good way to do it because you can take the bottom. Well, you probably want to subtract more, but so you can do things like that. Just make sure you have overlaps and think about what your final project is going to look like so you can create it. Does that help at all? So there's a bunch of ways to do it. So, all right. So Gail is asking on YouTube, when creating your own fonts, what underlay do you recommend? I noticed some pre-made fonts have a center line, some a zigzag, some. So the underlay that you choose is really going to be dependent on the size that you end up sewing out. So I'll say I do really like the new auto underlay. So generally when I'm doing my own, I just do the top stitching and any running stitches to connect the different elements. And I don't manually digitize in underlay because if something's going to be, you know, a 4-inch tall letter, it's going to be very different from something that's only 12 points wide. So depending on how large or small something is, it's going to be different. So then what you would do is type out your font and then go to the underlay and set it to whatever you want based on its size. I'll say this auto underlay, I love it. I use it all the time, but let me show you how you can understand what is it doing, because it's really looking at the size of your element and setting it accordingly. So if you click on the box with the 3 dots, that will bring up what the auto underlay is doing. So what you can see is for things that are small, so non-existent to 20 points, all right, so pretty narrow, it's just going to do a center walk. All right, so if you're going to manually digitize your own underlay, then, and it's small, under 20 points, that's a good rule of thumb. Just do a center walk. If you're going to do things that are 20 to 40 points wide, so it's, you know, getting a little bit wider, it's a nice satin stitch or something like that. And edge walk is nice, and plus edge walk on that side elements is also good because it cleans up your edges. So when the top stitches come across, you really don't need a whole lot more. When it gets bigger, you might want a zigzag. So when it's 40 to 60 points, a zigzag followed by an edge walk. So the zigzag gives you coverage of the fabric. The edge walk cleans up the edges. And then you got your nice satin stitch over top, or whatever type of stitch. And then when you get bigger than 60 points, you really can't do zigzags or anything crazy like that. So a fill underlay is best. So the auto works really nicely. So that's what I would suggest using, is just go ahead and go with auto. Now, if you want to do it yourself, that gives you a good foundation of understanding what underlay to select based on the size of your element. So this is a good baseline for you to kind of think about. You know, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 and above gives you a nice starting point. Okay. All right, let's see if I missed any questions before I jump back to the canned ones. So Gail, does that help? I hope it does. Let me know. All right, let's go back to my canned stuff. On my OS, it says machine invalid. It still runs, but doesn't tell me when you have PMs. I assume you mean error, like thread breaks and things like that. So what I would suggest for this is, it really kind of, my advice depends on what machine. So if you have an XTS or one of the original EMTs that have the -19 board in it, what I would suggest doing for that is to, I think we do have a Q&A that shows you how to delete jobs, delete machines, and do a forced download. So what you're basically going to do is reset the machine. So if you go into the folders where the software is, there's a machines folder and a jobs folder. Those 2 folders you can just delete. They will recreate when you boot the machine. So turn everything off, go into your PC, delete those 2, and then open up your OS software, go to Tools, Options, Ethernet, and click on the Force Download button. All right, when you do that, then power on the machine and it will reset the software. All right, so that's what I would suggest doing, is delete your jobs, delete machines. Now, if it's the new mainboard machines, then what you'd want to do with that is still delete your jobs and machines, but the force download's not going to do anything. I mean, you can click the button if you want, but it's not going to do anything. So just resetting it by deleting jobs and machines is enough. All right. So we did get you a link on deleting jobs and machines folders to the Q&A there. So you'll have that. So it will kind of guide you through, but that's where I would suggest doing for this. So it, you know, just reset it and go from there. So someone sent over this picture and said, you know, I'm having issues. I've done a bunch of stuff. you know, I can't make this go away. It's just on one machine. I'm a tech. I've been doing it for a while, and every time I've seen something like this, it's always the thread feed gear. So if you're looking at the, and it's a crack, and it can be subtle. So what I would recommend doing for this is getting the little tool, because getting that thread feed gear out without the tool is not fun. The tool makes it so easy. You just take the whole post out, so the post with the gear all comes off to the side, and then you can get the little snap ring off, the gear off. But that banding that you see there is almost always a result of a crack in the gear. The XT, I think, has the thinner gear as the original install for the thread feed drive. There's a new one that's thicker and it doesn't crack. So that's, I believe, was put on the XTS. The timing I might have off, but it's you can retrofit it into the XT. You just put the new gear in the old machine, and it's thicker and it doesn't crack, unless you do something drastic, I guess. But I've not seen it crack. Let me put it that way. All right. So, but yeah, every time I see that banding, it's always a crack in the thread feed gear. That's just what I've seen. So that would be my advice: is take that gear off, use the tool, and go from there. So let's see. Rudy's asking, can 40 weight thread be used as 65/9 needles, or is it necessary to use 60? Okay, yes, you can use the thicker needle in the smaller needle. Sorry, the thicker thread in the smaller needles. Yes, you can. I don't suggest it. Well, let me take that back. You can, and it's fine to do it. The problem is that one of the points of going to the smaller needles is to get kind of that finer sew out, right? So instead of drawing with a Sharpie, now you're drawing with a sharpened pencil. So if you're just sharpening the needle and you're not actually reducing the size of the line, you're not going to get the full benefit going to a smaller needle. So going to the thinner thread really helps you get that fine detail for the really small things. So while you can, it's always, you're going to have better overall results changing the needle and the thread to the thinner thread. Okay, so let's see. Rudy, does that help? Yeah, it's that on Facebook. All right. So yeah, that's the thread feed gear. All right, is there a way to have DesignShop show the thread different? Okay, so what if you're using 60 weight thread versus 40 weight thread, 30 weight, that sort of thing? Yes, except yes, you can. So I'll show you how to do it, but let me give you a big caveat. It is global. So it's a DesignShop setting. So if you change it to be something smaller, every thread in your file, every file you open is going to show that until you put it back. All right. It's not like I can set this one element to sew at a 30 weight thread and then this one to sew at a 60 weight thread. No, it doesn't work that way. So right here where you've got your show stitches in 3D, if you right click on that, right here is the thread width. Okay. So you can make it go smaller or make it go bigger. But that's global. All threads are going to show thicker. All threads are going to show thinner. Okay. And that's every project you open. It's a global setting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Let's see what other questions were typed in. We did get you the link on the deleting jobs and machines. We got a link for the thread feed gear. So you have that. All right. How do you stop shrinkage when stitching? Whoa, there we go. How do you stop shrinkage when stitching letters on the side of a hat when it's a stretchy mesh? Okay, stretchy meshes are always fun to sew on. I personally use spray adhesive and or even pin things. So it's spray adhesive, making sure it's clipped well, using a topper, but fixing the digitizing. So one technique you can always use is a primer stitch. So you know what that is, right? So if you take this, I go object, generate primer, and do a primer stitch, say okay. All right, so you got this thing sewing out. You can sew that in the color of the mesh, right? So the color of the fabric, and then you won't see, it won't be as noticeable, and it will hold all that fabric still. So now when you do your final design over top, it's not going to move around. So that's another good idea, is to use a primer stitch. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's fun. All right, so we have a question on YouTube. Suppose I want to put a word on top of an object or a word and wanted to have a punch out effect with a word on top of it having space out. How would we do this? Okay, so that's fun. That's like a trapunto effect, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to draw a fill. So I'm just, oops, let's actually do a fill. There's the fill. I'm going to do a box because it's fast. All right. And then I'm going to go cut out. All right. Type a word. Is that it? All right. Let's give it a color. There we go. All right. So I've got this fill. Let's say you want to do it actually as a trapunto. So I'm going to change it to a decorative fill. Yeah, that one's cute. All right, so I'll leave it at that. All right, so now I've got this decorative fill, and I want to have this negative space where the word cutout is. So what do? I can just use that subtract tool I showed you earlier. So if I select the fill, because that's what I want to subtract from, hold the control key down and click on the lettering. And if you want overlap, you can. Here I don't, because I'm going to end up deleting the letters anyway. So I'm just going to subtract. And now if I turn that off or delete it, you'll see I've got a full cutout of the text on there. Okay. Now if you want this, so let's say what you really want is that, but now I want a gap around this. How can we do that? You got different options. So you can do the cutout like I just did here, and then take each one of these outlines and offset it. All right, so if I select that one, I can go Object, Offset Outline, and let's say, I don't know, 30 points. I don't know how many points. I guess I should measure it. There. All right, so now you'll see for just that one letter where I did that, now I've got the cutout, but I also have a shape around there. So I can do that. Or I can take my lettering that's still there, add a primer stitch, and then cut it out that way. So I can say generate primer. I said it's really what look do you want? So I'm going to say a 30-point offset, and then I could subtract that out. But I like the, if what you're trying to get is a gap, it's kind of cute that way. Or if you just want the straight cut out, then just subtract them and call it done. Okay, so just to show you again how I made this pop out like that, you select the shape, and then I want to select that hole. So I click on the hole, and you'll see it's got a box around the hole. That's how I know it's selected. Then I can go Object, Offset Outline, or I can do right click, Operations, Offset Outline, and you pick a number. What number do you want? All right, so it's what look do you want? All right, Rob. Thank you for joining us today. All right. So, Kiyomi, I hope that helps. Let's see. Elaine on Facebook. How do you design chenille letters? And Rob's asking a software question. Yeah, ask me a software question. If I don't know the answer, we'll get it for you. All right. So, how do you design chenille letters? So, there is an article on the FAQ. We'll get you a link to that on chenille. So chenille is interesting. Basically, there's different techniques to it. So I know there's a digitizer out there that has a font that they did. And if you look at that one just sews out as puff. And then it's got like a scribble over top, which because of the different stitch directions of the kind of scribble effect on top, that's what makes it look like chenille. I've seen some people, this is kind of fun when they're doing larger letters, they actually use like a towel and do it as an applique and use that towel fabric to create the loop effect. So that's another. We do have a article out there that includes thinking out loud. There's the link to the article. So under styles, you'll see I've got these Burmilana chenille style. What that does is it applies the settings necessary on top of whatever you're creating to make it chenille. I'm pretty sure the chenille article includes those styles. I'm just clicking, yeah. So right here, there's this sample Vermilana Chenille ST3. So there's a style out there on the actual link. So there's the settings on how you set up the file, where to put the STL, how to apply it, and that will let you create it. So basically you create the shape and then kind of follow the different rules that you got here of creating the overlaps, the layers, and applying the style to it. Okay, so it's a bit of effort. It really just depends on what look you're going for. This when you do it the way that the article says, you also set up your machine to sew as chenille. If you're doing it as a faux chenille type look, on that it's all manually digitizing lines that scribble around. Okay, just so that the light hits it weird. Actually, I'm going to cancel that and leave it. All right, so Rob, you asked, can I answer a software question? Yeah, type it in, and as soon as I see it, I'll try to jump on it for you. All right. I think I caught all the questions that have been typed in so far. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to my canned stuff while Rob's typing for me. I'd like to sublimate some patches. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around sublimating fabric and then sewing fabric. Do I have fabric over here? I got these things. All right. So I didn't grab my little sublimated thing. Oh well. All right. So what do? So you got two different techniques you can apply to this. So I can go and sew out a blank patch. So white material, white border, and then I can print my sublimation, go to my press, and just sub it. Okay, that works. It does just fine. The thread, because if you sew it with white poly, the thread will also sublimate. So you can actually keep that in mind as you're doing it. So that's one technique you can use. But if you want to sublimate first and then create the patch, how do you manage the alignment? So I do a lot of it, and how I always do it. Now, I will tell you up front, I can think of probably 5 or 6 different ways to do it. I'll just tell you what I personally do, because I make quite a few sublimated type patch things, and where you have to do alignments and things like that. So what do you do? First off, if this is going to be the shape, if I'm going to do a square, first off, I can create the actual file that I'm going to sew with. So I can create my square. So whatever let's say this is a shape, I'll center it. I'm not going to sew in it, so I don't want it to be a fill, so I need to convert that over. So I'm going to hold my control key and click on the walk. So I've got my walk, copy, paste, give it another color. Copy, paste, hold the control key, click on single line, make that be tackle. Let's say 30 points for the width. Copy, paste, and give it another color. So I'm going to copy and paste that guy, and this time put it back to satin, and let's make it 45. There. All right, so I have a patch. All right, so now what I can do is I've got this size, this shape defined, and I can take that, and I always create mine with a bleed. So I oversize them when I sublimate it. It doesn't have to oversize a lot, but keep in mind when you press it, things are going to shrink. So you got the shrinkage effect. Plus when you align it, you don't want to have to rely on being perfect, right? So I usually just take my shape and make it a little bigger. So I'm going to copy paste that, convert it over into a vector. So I can click on the change element from one type to another, say vector fill, replace. And now I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to offset it, let's say 30 points. All right, so now it's bigger than I need it to be. And when I go over into Illustrator or to wherever you're creating your actual sublimation design, what you're going to want to do is, I'm just going to do it in the software so you can see it, because me and Illustrator, while I can use it, I'm slow. So, all right. So what you're going to do is create yourself dots or X's or something. Create something right on the edge of your patch. All right. So it's lined up along the center, and copy paste and put one over here. All right. So I can line I'm going to make those a different color we can actually see. Can we see those? Yeah, we can see that. All right. So what you're going to end up doing is printing those dots into the design. So you'll create whatever art you want here. You'd have dots lined up over here, and keep in mind they're not going to be visible when you sew because see, they're outside, right? So you can take your fabric, pin it to your plastic. Anyway, it doesn't have to be straight, so you can hoop it crooked. And because you have these dots, laser left, laser bullseye, it will rotate and align. And now I can run my patch file, cut off the excess fabric, and it'll be perfectly aligned within there. So it's all about just creating your registration points right along the origin. Okay. Yeah. Thread is polyester, so it's sublimatable. It's awesome. Yeah, I've actually seen folks who had designs that the text was too small to do to embroider, but the customer really wanted it to look embroidered. So what they did is they actually embroidered a full fill in white thread and then sublimated on top of it to get the design, and it looked beautiful. So that's fun. All right, so let's see. All right, long story. All right, you tried to install the software, it crashed. Do I need certain settings? So what I would suggest, if it sounds like you have a new machine, okay, so here's what I would suggest. Call tech support, and what they can do is they can remote into your computer and get it all set up for you. They can check all your settings. They can get all the software up and running, and they can even make sure it's all hooked up for you. So that would be the best way. There are a lot of good videos out there now of setting up the machine and things like that. If you go to the Melco service site, it'll take you over to that. The links, so you could do that. But I think the easiest thing to do would just be call the Melco service people. And how you do that, Melco, get your embroidery machine number, and where's tech support? There you go. So there's the phone number. So give them a call. They can get in the queue for the tech guys. They can log into your computer they'll have you all hook it up. You can watch them and talk to them, and they'll walk you straight through everything. Okay. All right. Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, that's cool. Looking through questions to see if I've missed anything. No, I don't see any. Sorry, I'm just got a short little screen here. Yeah, tech support folks are all fantastic, so I highly recommend that. Plus, they'll log in and get you all set up. If your warranty is gone, they do have a phone support where they still will help you. So try it first, call in. If they tell you that your support is not valid, your warranty's out, then there's on Shop Melco. And I think it's on that same link that I gave you about doing a phone support. It's $50 for a month or something like that. So, and you can call as much as you want. So, sorry, Dan. All right. So let's see what else. Where's my questions? There they are. Okay. Yeah, there's the link. We just got you the link to how to purchase the phone support if you don't have it. I would just call first, type in your serial number, and see what you get. So, there were some questions, I think, last week or the week before about the software updates to DesignShop. I did want to point that out. If you go to downloads.melcocloud.com, so if you go here, you can go get the latest update and go to proceed to download, and this will get you the latest service pack. So I think there's a new service pack out there. You can go grab it and get it installed, and it has some different bug corrections and things like that. So I've been running it. Works great. That's what I've been demoing for you all today as well. So all right, just keep that in mind. Let's see. Oh, Sandy, let me go look at your question. See if I missed it or I'm scrolling. I'm sorry. I thought I didn't miss any. Sandy, yours was the sublimating question. Oh, the one about the thread color not changing. Yeah, I did cover that one. So that was here. I think that's we talked about there was the thread tree coloring. So make sure your thread tree's set right, that tools settings. You're not using colors from design, so that's another option to look at. You can always do a delete jobs, delete machines, and look at that as well. But yeah, I talked about that earlier. Oh yeah, Scott just pointed out another fun thing to do is to do a white puff letter and then sublimate camo or another pattern on top of it. So I did on a solid black fabric, I embroidered out big word with white and then took a really crazy pattern, just rainbow camo, and put it across and sublimated it. It was so cool. Anyway, yeah, that's a really fun technique because it makes it look like it's sewing it out. And people are like, what thread are you using? Yeah, it's not thread, it's sublimation. Anyway, so yeah, but we did cover that one earlier. The other question. All right, what else? All right, so we did get you the link to the downloads. Trying to see if there's anything else here that I missed. All right, so I don't have any other questions that were sent in ahead of time. So I'll kind of hang out for a little bit, see if you guys got anything else you want to chat about. If not, I'll be back next week. Like I said, we try to do these weekly. Next week, I'm intending to do it Thursday. I got some issues that have me a little bit hectic on my schedules with different doctor's appointments and whatnot. So I might have to push it to Friday, but either way, you'll see on the Facebook and asking for questions. So I'll give you a heads up of when I'm going to do it. Yeah, this is actually available immediately afterwards, I believe, both on YouTube and Facebook. So the videos don't get deleted, they stay up there. So yeah, you can watch them at any time. There is a index on the Melco service site as well, and that will give you kind of, a brief overview of what was covered in there. So if you're looking for a specific topic, you can go to that index and kind of search, and it also gives you links to those videos. So let's say you found one from, a year ago and you're like, ooh, now you can just click on the link rather than having to go search YouTube or Facebook for that particular date. What was my settings for the primer stitch? Really, primer stitch kind of depends on what I'm doing. So, and what size it is and what look I want. But I tend to stick to a little bit smaller than the standard. So the default is 50 points. I tend to go closer to 20 to 30 points. It's a personal preference. I like them a little bit closer rather than really big. It really depends on what I'm trying to do with it. A lot of times I actually use the primer as a way to create quick fills that match my shape, so I don't have to go retrace shapes. So in those cases, rather than make it oversized, I actually try to make it as small as possible so that I have very little editing to use. So I'll actually come in here and do silly things like this. And when it's not lettering, I haven't quite decided what the threshold is there. Because sometimes you can set it to 5 points and it does perfect. And other times I can come over here and say, let's see. Yeah, I don't know what the threshold is. At some point it'll come down and then I just offset it. But a lot of times I'll do this to create quick fills of different shapes. And then come up here, delete one of these, change that to something smaller, and usually I go actually apply a style to that. Change the fill type, things like that. All right. Where does one find the software card to determine the first 4 characters? So the software this is Design Shop. So if I go to that cloud thingy, where's the cloud? My terminology is just lovely. Sorry, I call everything. So that's a Bravo. That's the Bravo, something with Bravo. That's Design, or Bernina. I don't know. It's Bravo or Bernina, one of the two. That's Design Shop, and that's the MOS. So, yeah. Okay. But yeah, this is the S11. And you can also look at your thing by going object, where is it? Security. There it is. So tools, security. Right here are the first 4 digits. And I shouldn't have shown you that, but yeah. Tools, security will give you the first 4 digits there. Okay. Does Melco ever have sale on Design Shop? I have editor. You want to upgrade to Pro? I want to say yes, because I know I've seen sales. I don't know the timing on that. I don't have any input or any visibility onto when those are coming. I know personally, I always go to shows and ask about sales there. So I know whenever there's shows. One thing you can always try is giving your sales agent a call and asking them. You know, they'll, if they know you're interested, but you're waiting on a sale, a lot of them will kind of put that in their little queue, you know, so they'll have that ready as a lead for when the sales come up. They can reach out to you. So that would be one idea, is reach out to your salesperson. But I don't know when they do them. But yeah, there's sales every now and then on different stuff. All right, what else? Yeah. Yay, I'm glad you love your machine. Yeah, I got 13 of them out there. I love them. I guess that's clear if I've got 13. I actually got new equipment coming in the next week or two to kind of expand. So that's going to be exciting. So there's going to be more equipment sitting behind me. You guys get to see that. That'll be fun. Anyway. All right. Well, I guess we will call it a day. I will be back next week. Like I said, I'm aiming for Thursday. Let me know what questions you have. You can always email applications@melco.com. And I know with the puff, the question on the coloring, one of the things I did say is to send us the file. So if you do what we talked about on the video and it's still messing with it, send us a file to applications@melco, and we will go from there and see what else, you know, if it's something with the file or if there's how we can help you better. All right. So you guys have a fantastic weekend. I'll talk to you guys next week. Hope these are helpful. You enjoy them. So I'll be back. Till then, have fun sewing. Bye.